Today's episode is a first for the Happiness Hive. I'm going to chat with two gorgeous women today, and I'm super excited about that. I met Kylie Sandland and Jane Baxter through a mutual friend of ours, Anya Lanine, who was a previous guest on the podcast. And so Anya introduced us, and I'm super excited to talk with Jane and Kylie about this business that they've created. It's called The Essence of Home. So we're going to chat all about what the business is and how it came about, and a little bit also about Jane and Kylie. Before I welcome them in, Kylie's an organisational psychologist with a passion for home design, and she's combined those two elements and has become a recognised leader in this emerging field that I want to find out all about, design psychology. And Jane has a passion for business and spreadsheets, which I love. And after taking a hiatus from work to raise her son, and then finding that work was probably not as fulfilling, she joined forces with Kylie and is the behind the scenes managing The Essence of Home. So welcome to Kylie and Jane. Welcome.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks for having us.
So what I normally do to start with is just to find out what stage of life each of you are at, just where our guests are at. So Kylie, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about just what stage of life you're at.
Yeah, I think I'm probably in one of the most chaotic stages of life possible with 3 teenagers. One's an adult teenager, and I have twins who are 16, who've just started year 11. And it's been I
can hear that sigh that you really say, like you already said.
It's really full on.
3 teenagers. Twins, oh my gosh.
Yes.
And
creating a business, which is a big job.
Yeah.
And so I feel, obviously my kids are getting older. My eldest is turning 20 this year. And so I've been through a lot of stages of parenthood, and I'm pretty sure this one's been the most stressful.
Do you know what? Actually, we might unpack that a little bit too about just those different stages of life, because my kids are a bit older. Mine are 27 and 25, and each stage has been beautiful, but each stage has kind of had its challenges as well.
Absolutely.
So you've got one extra, and you've got twins.
Yes.
And it's also a busy stage, isn't it, being a mum and a businesswoman? So we might go back and unpack some of that.
Yeah, so busy.
And you're an organisational psychologist?
Yes. So I have been working in corporates for about 27 years.
Actually, I whisper how long I've been working.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a lot of time, but working in corporates and all sorts of industries and private and public sector, and working with business to recruit the right people, to coach and help people who are struggling, to help people thrive in their organisations to whatever extent that's possible in some of those corporate environments, and helping businesses restructure themselves. And
are you still working in corporate? You're moving away from
I'm
that?
Primarily focused on Essence of Home, and my goal is to move completely away once Essence of Home is moving fast. So but I still have I'm still dabbling in it, and I do some psychological assessment work and leadership development work.
Because when you were saying that, because that's, I think, when we were talking before, we have some crossovers, and
yes.
Corporate is a tough gig at the moment, and especially in that senior leadership, people are being squeezed, and I often, a lot of my clients, helping them to, manage that balance. They're similar, Kylie, to you, that they've got families, they're got very senior roles, and how do you balance all of that? So it's a tough gig.
And one of the biggest issues, I think, for women in corporate who are around our age is that they have teenager kids. and teenagers are struggling. Teenagers are really struggling, this generation, and there's massive mental health issues. And I've spoken to many very senior women in corporates with teenagers who have very serious mental health issues, and it's a really hard gig.
It has become more prevalent, hasn't it, especially on the back of COVID.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you find this too, but I've experienced it, and a lot of people in my age group have got like young adults, teenagers, young adults, but they've also got aging parents.
Yes.
And having to sort of deal with the aging parents and, you know, some of the health challenges that go there. I'm finding that really, and I've been through that. That was stressful.
Yeah, cool. Absolutely.
Awesome. I'm going to come back and dip into more of that. Jane, tell us a little bit about what stage of life that you're at.
I'm similar. I have one child.
Yeah.
So he has nowhere to hide. He's in year 11 at the moment. So, you know, just touching on what Kylie was saying, you know, you've got that struggle of them going through adolescence, but also us going through perimenopause.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got those two emotions within a household, and trying to break through in our business.
Yes.
You know, and there's all of that sort of thing, you know, constantly out of your comfort zone by doing new things, which is great. But also, you know, you sort of go, oh, I'd just like to sometimes just take a day where I'm just doing something that I know how to do. Rather than
oh my God, I feel you so much, Jane. I feel you. Yes.
Yeah. So
I was going to say, a lot of it's our own doing, isn't it? Because we're women and we're in business, and we're doing it because the business lights us up. I'm going to go back and chat with you a little bit about what your kind of journey has been, but we're in business because that lights us up, but it's also a challenge as well. Like it is a big challenge. It is a big challenge.
Yeah.
So tell me, Jane, what's your kind of journey been?
So my kind of journey was, I've had a business before this. So when my son was small, clearly I wanted to do something for myself after having been in the corporate game and just going, I just can't do that anymore. I don't want to have to climb that ladder. I don't have that desire anymore.
And you worked with some big organisations, didn't you?
I worked with Reader's Digest for quite some time, and I loved it there because it's very numbers by marketed by numbers. So which spreadsheet where I love
spreadsheets.
I'm very at home in a spreadsheet. I love it. And so after having had my son, I started doing little bits and pieces. I did a lot of volunteering and things, but I always wanted something for me. Yeah. You know, being a mum is an identity of its own, but you also need something for yourself. Yeah. Instead of being Angus's mum, I want to be Jane, you know. So you do need that. And I think that I found that a little bit with business. Yeah. It was a swimwear business, which is not, I don't quite know why I did that.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love it.
Because I don't actually like wearing swimwear.
But it must have fulfilled some needs for you.
It did. I ended up having to give that up when we moved overseas with my husband's work. Yeah. But again, wasn't my forte. So it was you know, everything happens for a reason. I'm a big believer of that. Me too. And so that was just part of my journey.
Yeah. And then you started when your son, so you took some time off when you were raising your son, and then you had that yearning to get back into business again and do things on your terms. And that's, I want to find out about how you both joined forces to create this beautiful business. Before we do that, because I know once we start talking about your business, we won't come back to the other points. What are some of the challenges that you found being business women? And, you know, Kylie, and Jane, you've both mentioned some of them there, with balancing with other areas of life and doing things for yourself. What are some other challenges that you found in running your own businesses, Kylie?
Well, I think, as Jane said, it's that constant being out of your comfort zone, just constant challenging, and then just sometimes thinking, oh, it'd be just so much easier if I just had a normal job and, you know, and I could not have to be stressed all the time, getting out of the comfort zone. But I think one of the challenges both of us have had is asking for things. So, you know, and we've recognised this in both of us, and we found ourselves in a position with Design for Hope, which I know we'll talk about later, but that's our social impact arm, where we had to ask business for a lot of money and a lot of volunteer support, and asking other people for things is something that we've both find very hard. We're people pleasers, so we give.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I have got goosebumps. I have goosebumps all down my arms, because it's the same thing. Like, we will talk more about your social impact of the business, but I think women in business, very capable women as well, sometimes we do see that as a weakness, don't we, in being able to ask, because certainly for me, I am not good at asking. And I've had a recent little blimp in just a lot of almost burnout, I would say. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I need to be able to work through this on my own. I've got all the tools, I've got all the resources, but it's just like, you know what, I can't do it on my own. So I reached out, but there was a part of me that was just like, really, Catherine, you should be able to sort this out. And it was this challenge about, so my asking was kind of different to some of what yours was, but it's when you're, you know, strong, capable, competent, that doesn't mean that you have to do it all on your own.
But I think it even as a business person, it comes down to also asking for sales, asking for people to, you know, buy a product that we're so passionate about, but it's still hard to ask. And
what about you, Jane? What are some of the challenges that you found in business?
I think going back to what you were saying about asking and things, in that respect, Kylie and I are quite lucky. We have each other to bounce off. So we do have that, but we're both introverts as well. And so we find that being on all the time and social media and always being responding and putting ourselves out there physically in front of the camera and constantly giving our energy, I guess it is one of the biggest things that I find. And I know Kylie finds it too. We find that quite difficult. And we know we have a brilliant product and we know we can help people, but we have to find that balance. That it doesn't take everything from us.
I love that so much.
And so we're still finding that balance.
Do you know what? I'm extroverted, but I do get drained. I do get really impacted by other people's energy, and what you're describing there too, Jane, about ensuring that my business doesn't zap it out of me, because there's a lot of, and we are in that giving industry, like we're in giving businesses. And I have this absolutely love-hate relationship with social media, that people kind of need to know who you are, and, you know, so they can get a sense of what you do. But showing up, I find challenging. And the biggest friend I think I found in that is scheduling stuff. So it possibly looks like I'm really, really active, but in reality, I spend a chunk of time, maybe once a month, doing some of the, when I'm in the mood and scheduling of stuff. But I get you. And there's a lot of, I'm noticing too on social media, there's a lot of that movement around slowing down and not being so in people's faces, but people kind of need to find out about us as well.
Hard balance, that one.
It is a hard balance. It is a hard balance, and the energy and being more introverted and then getting out there, that is a real, doesn't mean you can't do it, but it drains your energy maybe differently to mine. Like I'm craving getting back face to face in person, because that's where that lights me up. That absolutely lights me up. So tell me about this beautiful business. Tell me about Essence of Home. Who wants to jump in and share what it is?
I'll jump in.
Go in, Jane. Yeah, go in, Jane.
We'll start at the very beginning.
Yes, please.
It's a place to start. We met with our kids at school.
Yeah.
So we then found each other again a little bit later in an online forum with an American person, actually. And I just sort of made a comment on this forum, and Kylie said, Jane, hi. And we live like 10 minutes from each other.
Oh, really? Oh.
So that's where...
So you were independently on that
Yes.
online forum. You didn't know that you were there.
No.
And so you knew each other, but you reconnected in a different... Oh, my gosh, how gorgeous.
Yeah. It's funny. Kind of, that whole meant to be feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we started off, we were doing separate things, and then we started to talk, and it kind of evolved from there. I guess Kylie can tell you a little bit more about the underlying thing, but what I would say about our business is that we, as an umbrella statement, is that we're just here to support women, in every aspect.
Love.
Just to bring calm and joy to people's lives, and to try and help from a well-being aspect, as well as a listening ear to hear what they've got to say, and really listen and really take on board the person themselves.
Oh, gosh, I love that. No wonder we've connected. Like, that's just such a beautiful, helping women, but helping them be heard, and listening and just being there with them. So, Kylie, tell us about Essence of Home. What do you do?
I think I'll get to that in 1 second, but further to that is helping women reconnect with themselves.
Yeah.
Because I think once you get to this point and you've been a mum for decades, you've often lost your sense of self in that process. And we're also supporting women who have been through domestic violence, and they most certainly have lost their sense of self.
Yes.
So the way we do that through Essence of Home is to help women reconnect to who they are and what's important to them through the process of designing and decorating their home. So our homes are an expression of self. And in its truest, best form, that's what home should be, an expression of who we are in the deepest sense. Unfortunately, with so much media focus on renovating and, one-day makeovers and things like that, interior design has very much become a cookie cutter, very bland, uninspiring place. So a lot of social media, a lot of influencers, every home looks exactly the same.
It's almost formulaic, isn't it?
It's a formula.
It's almost like a template.
It is. It's a template. And so people want their home to feel good, and so they jump on board with that template or that formula. They reproduce what they see in the media, and then they don't feel fulfilled.
No, because they're just trying to be someone else.
They've followed a formula that doesn't work for them. So Essence of Home is about helping women create spaces that are based on their personality. So there's a lot of science behind how to decorate your space based on your personality. So back to that introvert, extrovert thing, there are specific colours and, and the objects around us that need to be influenced by our personality so that we feel at ease in our homes. We help women identify what's most important to them, so their values, and then how that needs to be expressed in their home. So we through processes of identifying values, We look at the feelings that you want to feel at home. So instead of just how you want it to look, how do you actually want it to feel? And, you know, each space in your house probably should feel something different. You might want to feel really focused and productive in your home office, and then you might want to feel really relaxed in your living room. So there are specific design techniques that you can use to create these feelings. So identifying how you want to feel, and then, you know, what are the techniques to create those feelings. And also we talk about beauty. You know, beauty is one of those things that a lot of people feel like it's a frivolous thing to pursue. So I shouldn't be wasting my time on my home. I should be spending my money. I should put all my money into my kids' savings accounts. I shouldn't be, you know, spending time making my spaces look lovely. But actually, the search for beauty is hardwired into our brain. I mean, you look at ancient civilizations and they were seeking beauty back then. You know, we look at the beautifully intricately carved pottery and painted, you know, walls in caves. Human beings seek out beauty. And actually what happens is when we see something beautiful, we get a release of feel-good hormones. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Sorry, you keep going.
No, so what I'm saying is it's not frivolous. It's not selfish to create beautiful spaces, but that's how we feel, particularly as women who, when we're busy with kids, and we should be sacrificing all of us for everyone else. But just taking that time to create beauty around us that is completely aligned with who we are and what matters most to us it's a real soul journey. You know, it's a journey back to self. It's not just following a cookie cutter interior design formula. So that was a very long way.
Oh my gosh, you need to when you listen to this back, because that's both of you have provided a beautiful explanation. And if we I know why we're so aligned, because the way that you described about helping women to feel good about themselves and through their environment and their home, if we take what you just described there, I do very similar with women about how they feel about themselves. So what's important, you were talking about the values there, so and how they want to feel is, you know, how do they want to show up and how do they want to feel to be their authentic selves? And I talk about helping people to create their best and most beautiful lives. And one of the things I came across, I have this on my desk. It's a little canvas bag that says, I'm going to make everything around me beautiful. That will be my life. And that's a saying from Elsie de Wolf. And for me, that is the essence. And that kind of sums up what you're doing as well, is helping women to feel beautiful. And you're right. I think the media has kind of tarnished that word a little bit, that it's not okay to feel beautiful, because whatever beautiful means for you might be different for me, and it might be different for Jane. But it's about being able to be ourselves. And I love, Kylie, how you said that our homes are an expression of ourselves. And the thing that just went through my mind then is my home is overwhelming at the moment. It has a lot of stuff in it that I don't want to be in it. And it's kind of, this has happened, well, I was going to say it's just happened from when my dad passed away a couple of years ago. It's not. There's stuff that I've kept. But when you said that, my home is an expression of me, I feel overwhelmed at the moment. I feel overwhelmed, and I keep looking off to the side. That's the living room, that's the storage room, and it's just like far out. That's a reflection of how I'm feeling. So is that part of the process that you help people as well, is to...
Absolutely. And I think clutter is so insidious. So our stuff is really important. So special objects in our home, like photographs and, art that we picked up while we were on a girls' weekend, or, that's really important stuff to our well-being. But what actually happens is, there's our mind and body are connected, obviously. What happens in our body when we have a cluttered space? Well, there's your body and your mind. So in your body, clutter actually increases the stress hormone cortisol. So you have a cluttered space, your cortisol levels are permanently elevated. So you will have higher blood pressure, increased cortisol obviously leads to a whole raft of health problems and suppressed immune system, weight gain, all of those things. So cortisol, especially for women our age, is like highly toxic, really. But that's what clutter is doing to your body.
Oh, my God. So, you just described how I'm feeling about life at the moment. Yeah.
But the other thing is when there's a lot of visual clutter, so when there's a lot to see and absorb in our environment, our brain goes into overdrive. So that is why you're feeling overwhelmed, because your brain has too much to process when there's clutter in a space. And, one thing we did at a refuge that we renovated is there was a lot of clutter on the walls. So a lot of unnecessary nails and electrical conduit coming down the walls, and old heaters that didn't even work. Just everything was cluttered. And one of the first things we did was just rip everything off the walls so that it was just a clean space. Because even though you'd walk in and think, well, that's pretty innocuous, and, what's that going to do to me? What it's doing is causing your brain to go into overload. So, and once you have cognitive overload, then you can't focus well, you have memory loss, it's harder to feel creative. So, there's a huge industry around decluttering, but no one's really talking about why it's actually...
Do you know, that's really interesting. And what are your tips? Because the stuff for me, and I think I talked about this, there was a previous podcast episode where we did talk with a decluttering expert.
Oh, awesome.
And the heirloom clutter. So that's stuff that we've got from family. So John's mum passed away last year as well. So we've got some of her stuff. And it's just like, oh, my God. And it's interesting when you were talking about that overwhelm and the cortisol levels increased. It's then really hard to go, oh, I'm actually going to work through this clutter. It's easy to just go, I'll close the doors and not deal with it, which is kind of interesting in itself, isn't it?
That sentimental clutter is the hardest to deal with. So there are different types of... There are several reasons why, several causes of clutter, I should say. And none of it is because, we're lazy. The causes are often systemic, related to our home and storage and things like that. But that sentimental clutter that's coming in now is the most difficult, and that requires a whole psychological process to deal with that. But there are various strategies that you can use, and I'm not sure what you discussed with the decluttering person, but the first thing is to really understand what it means to you. What does that piece of furniture actually mean to you? Because that the person who has passed would most definitely not want the person who has their piece of furniture to be suffering because of it. So it's understanding what it means to you and then allowing yourself to let go of that if that is not something that actually will contribute to your well-being.
Do you know what some of it is? That is very similar to what Lauren was talking about. Some of it is there is old letters that have been written. There are photographs. There's this stuff that, personally, does it have meaning to me? No. I think if I were to dispose of it, maybe it would have meaning to someone else. And I think that's where I left it with Lauren. She said, maybe find out if other people want to, in the family, that want to have access to it. But then it was just like, oh, fuck, now I've got to do all this to find out who wants this.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, that's the overwhelm, is kind of going,
to do. One thing you can do with letters is digitize it all.
Yeah, sure.
So actually get rid of the physical. I mean, as much as
no, that's
we might like to see the handwriting and feel that you can keep one letter and you can digitize the rest. We went through a huge process after my grandmother passed, who was an avid photographer, of her hundreds of photo albums and what we were going to do with those, because no one had the space for them. And so we ended up digitizing all of it. And so now we have the whole family history. But now you can share it. So you can actually share it more with
when it's digitized.
Digitized. So
and you know what, as I talk about this, I think it's about going, just break it down into, and I talk with this with my clients all the time, just break it down into those bite-sized chunks. Don't try and do it. And I think where I got to was a bit of a stalemate, going, oh my God, it's just so big, and then forgot my own advice about breaking that down in. So thank you for that. And quite often our solutions are quite simple ones, aren't they? That quite often, not always. So tell me, Jane, more about the Design for Hope, which is part of your beautiful business model as well.
So Design for Hope is our social impact arm. We spent last year renovating a women's and children's shelter in Sydney. It was a safe environment, but it was very sterile. And we use trauma-informed design. I'll let Kylie talk a little bit more about that, to help, again, relieve some of the stress, that visual clutter, all that sort of thing that Kylie was talking about. We had one of the women came up to us while we were halfway through the project, and she was saying she'd been through seen the from the start through to more or less the end. And she just came up to us and she just sort of said, this is really getting me right here. This is really
in the heart.
My heart.
In the heart.
And she said, but not only for me, it's for my son to see what a lovely home can be. And I mean, that just kind of breaks your heart when you think what this poor lady and her child had been through. And, that's the outcome that we want, so that they feel worthy, and that's what some of them actually said afterwards. When I saw, I think I've got it here, when I saw my bedroom, I felt worthy. I was thinking, is this really, really done for me? And it was like, oh my God, these poor women. But again, it's, it's to help them get their identity back and all that sort of thing. We renovated 5 bedrooms, an office, about 5 living areas.
Wow.
So 5 living areas in the home. We had a lot of help. It was a lot of fundraising was a fun aspect of that. We're not fundraisers. No. We discovered we're not very good at fundraising. It was we got good at asking. Like Kylie was saying, we had to get good at asking. We had some phenomenal help from people like Dulux and Luxaflex, Castlery, a small business near us who do upcycling of furniture. So we took pieces of furniture there and they just gave it a whole new life.
Oh, how beautiful.
Because we were on such a strict budget, really, really strict budget. And
Bunnings gave us our building materials. And
so tell me more about this. So you've got your Essence of Home. So that's a business that you both work in, and that's about helping women primarily and their families to feel good in their environment. So you help them with sort of that design psychology. So it's not just the cookie cutter interior design. It's actually about working with them so their space becomes, a beautiful reflection of who they are. And so that's your paid service business, and that's pretty new, isn't it? Like that's
yes.
How new is it?
2 years. We're just coming up to 2 years, but we did spend a lot of last year actually doing our pro bono work with Design for Hope.
Yeah. So you started Essence of Home, then you've got your the social impact side of it, and that's where you do actually, that pro bono. So that's providing that, and you chose a women's refuge in Sydney to start with. So that was about linking back to what your kind of business ethos is, to help women. And it was about the giving back element.
Absolutely.
So the women's refuge, and you just started from scratch, did you, with that? And just went in and did all your design psychology elements. And some of the stuff you mentioned was just, you got rid of a lot of the clutter. What were some of the other things that you were able to do that I guess incorporates that design and the psychology elements that you were able to bring into the refuge?
So we had some very specific goals with the refuge, based on, again, how we wanted the women and children to feel. So as Jane said, it's a safe environment. Refuges are the target, unfortunately, of disgruntled, abusive partners. So it was very safe. They had, all of the security in place, but the home itself was very tired, very clinical. Part of the home actually felt like a hospital. It was that clinical.
Interesting,
It had the old vinyl square tiles on the floor with black plastic skirting boards and hospital colours and things like that. And so, we wanted to make it feel warm and homely, but we also wanted to integrate some very specific elements. So, for example, we wanted it to feel like a calm space. So these women and children have experienced trauma, so to try and reset their nervous system and to make the space feel very calm, we used a couple of techniques. One is biophilic design. Biophilic design is, simply put, bringing nature into your environment. So biophilia is one of the most well-researched topics in design psychology, and it is been proven time and time again that when you bring plants, but not just plants, natural elements and references to nature into your home, your blood pressure decreases, your whole nervous system calms down. It's also a potent healer. So there's been studies done in hospitals where patients have had a view of a brick wall and a view of a tree, and patients with a view of a tree had less pain, required less pain management, and were discharged from hospital earlier and had less complications. So nature is very potent, and so we brought that into Erin's place with fake plants. Fake plants work just as well as real plants.
I was just thinking about that because
so in terms of the psychological impact, you don't need real plants if you don't have a green thumb. And obviously in a refuge we had to use plants that weren't real because it's a transitional space, so there's not one person who would be permanently there to take care of them. But it's also in the colours that we used. So we used soft nature-based colours. So blues and greens are very calming. We had a lot of references to nature. So we had this beautiful artwork donated by a lovely artist in Melbourne. Her name is Debbie McKenzie, and she creates the most beautiful landscape artworks, and she donated a very expensive artwork to us, but that really created the scene for the whole living space for the mums, and also shapes. So there's some really interesting research around shapes, and organic curved shapes are calming, whereas straight lines and angles actually can fire up that part of our brain responsible for our fear response. So, we integrate a lot of organic shapes into the spaces as well. So biophilia is one thing. Colour, as I said, is another thing, and we can create emotion with colour.
Yeah.
Colour is sensory, it's visceral. And so we had a very specific colour palette that we used. The way that we arranged furniture can impact how you feel. So we've evolved as humans to feel more at ease when we're protected from behind. So let's say we've got a wall or a cave behind us, but we can also see out. So we can see what's coming toward us. Yeah. So the way the furniture was arranged in the living room was that the sofa was here and there was a doorway right behind. So anyone who's in a trauma experience, with heightened, level of alertness is going to feel really stressed if they can't see what's coming behind them. So simply by shifting the furniture around, we're able to create a stronger sense of safety and well-being. So there were a lot of things that we built in around rebuilding identity, rebuilding confidence and a sense of control. So design choices were very intentional.
Oh my gosh, Kylie, that just, I'm just mesmerized by all of that. Like, so I'm not a psychologist, but I love all of what you're talking about. And just the nuances about bringing that into your environment and thinking specifically about the women and their children and what they've experienced and how to create that space that is calming and also that's not just about being calming, but not being, heightening their alert responses as well. Yeah. So I guess that's the calming element, but really being mindful of what they've experienced, and they would have varying degrees of traumatic experiences as well. So just being able to bring all of that in. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. So beautiful.
The other element, which is interesting and challenging, in a refuge like that, is that we're working to meet the needs not only of the mums but also the children. And there was no colour in the space, and the children felt one of the caseworkers asked some of the children before we started what they would like to see, and one of the little girls just said, well, there's no colour. There's just no colour. And so we created a whole kids space, which was just beautiful. It was still a calming colour palette, but much more fun and more saturated colours. So not your typical preschool colours, but really fun colours. And we were working upstairs at one point. We'd completed downstairs where the kids' room is, and we were walking through, and the kids were just playing. But the funny thing was that we'd put a teepee in that space full of cushions and things, and when we walked through, Mum was in the teepee just lying on all the cushions, just totally chilled out while the kids were playing. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I really love to see that, because
that is beautiful.
That space was for everyone, not just the kids. But we use different design elements in different spaces for different purposes. So to bring joy and inspiration, but also to bring calm and ease and quiet. So
And is that what you do with, sorry, Jan, I'll be 2 secs. Is that what you do with clients in your Essence of Home business as well? Sort of what is it that they're wanting from their home? And when you got back to talking about how do you want to feel in the different spaces, then you work through with them to be able to bring what they want into their home.
So how can they use design as a tool to create the experience that they want in their home?
Yeah, beautiful. Sorry, Jane, you were going to pop in.
I was just going to say it can be as simple as a hallway. So one of the hallways in the refuge was the most sterile. It's what we used. It's what Kylie was referring to when she was talking about the hospital feel. And it was white, and it had
metal
lighting and metal ceiling, and it actually felt a bit like, when you see a movie and they're in an asylum. That's how it felt. We both just looked at each other when we walked in and went, well, this has got to change. And Kylie did this amazing she made it feel like a forest. Like they were just walking through, and they walked through this hallway to get to a meeting room where they discussed their cases. So the whole feeling was to try and help them calm on the way through to walking to this space.
Yeah.
And so she found this gorgeous wallpaper that had vines and birds and everything. And then we put these drop lights in, and that created this
branches,
that felt like it was part of, the light filtering through into a forest. And it was just incredible, just a hallway, and what a difference it can make.
Difference that's made.
Incredible.
Given that it's a women's refuge and it's probably private, are there photos do you have photos on your website?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Quickly, just tell us your website. They'll be in the show notes as well. But what's the website?
It's essenceofhome.com.au, and our page is called Design for Hope on that.
Design for Hope. So
you can see the before and after photos.
Oh, awesome. That's going to be so cool. That's going to be so cool. So what's next? Actually, before I ask you that, it was a pro bono. So you had to, this gets back to what you were saying, Kylie, before, and Jane, what you were saying about asking and volunteering and fundraising.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Did you have to get all the stuff donated?
Yes.
A lot of it.
A lot of it. Yeah.
What did you do? Just ask. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. It was a bit of cold calling. Kylie's very good at it. I fear it like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, me too. But are you better at it?
Use your network wherever you can.
Yeah. We
were unknown as well.
Yeah, totally unknown. We hadn't completed a project like that in the past, but we had a connection with Dulux, which was really helpful.
Yeah.
And Dulux were just absolutely wonderful. They, the team we worked with are, very passionate about giving back, and they've done other work like that, like Ronald McDonald House for kids, and they were just absolutely brilliant. They sent in big teams and obviously donated all the paint and the labour.
Oh wow!
Totally transform it. But Luxaflex, we that was a cold call, and and they were absolutely wonderful as well. I mean, they don't advertise that they help the community, but they put the most beautiful window treatments throughout the whole entire house. It would have cost a fortune for us.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
Isn't
it
very
beautiful?
Generous.
Yeah, there's a lot of businesses that will help. So it's, even though it's hard doing that cold calling, what I'm hearing is that it actually paid off, and that there are a lot of businesses out there that are doing a lot to help others.
There are. Yeah. And there are some that surprise you by not wanting a bar of it as well.
Interesting. We won't talk about them.
No, we won't talk about them. But
we don't go to them.
But it's interesting too, isn't it? The different reactions and things like that. But I could imagine the fundraising element, and it would be challenging because, as you said, Jane, you're not fundraisers. You're actually, experts in your own fields. And what we often find being in business, there are things that we need to do that maybe isn't our expertise, but for future projects, are you going to get a fundraiser on board?
Well, ultimately, what we would like to do is that once our business is up and making profits, a percentage of our profits will actually go to fueling that, so we don't have to get fundraising.
Perfect.
It's a huge driver for us.
I have a very similar business model where I actually take a percentage and then I use that for my giving back element as well. So I do that. So what is next for you? What is next? What's next?
Well, there's so many things.
Yeah.
We're currently working on a colour masterclass. We do a lot of face-to-face consults, but we also do online consults, so direct with Kylie. We're just getting that off the ground. We have an online course that is very much a psychology-driven course for your home. That's there all the time. The masterclass, as I just said, and then we're going to be doing 6-week coaching courses that launches in August.
Yeah, nice.
So, and that's really all about design style and really delving in and coaching.
Perfect.
Group coaching.
Yeah. So who are your who would be attending those? Who would be your ideal market for those? Anyone who wants to design their home?
Yeah, look, it can be anyone. We find that, there might be different people coming to different courses possibly, but the journey that we like to take women on is firstly just to introduce them to design psychology and the massive impact you can make without spending any money by making 5 simple shifts in your mindset and your home. And that's just our introductory course. And as Jane said, that's available on our website all of the time. Yeah. But then delving deeper into your design style, a lot of women struggle to figure out how they even want to style their home. Yeah. And so that's what the coaching course will be in August. So how to define your design style so that you can avoid this cookie cutter approach to interior design, which is what prevails at the moment. And then after that, we'll be running a styling course. So, if you've got a room, where do you start? You've got to start from scratch and just taking people through that interior design process.
Oh, awesome.
Sorry, I don't know if that was your question.
I can't remember. I think what was next for you, but I think that's
what was next.
There's lots of beautiful things there.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, quickly, what do you do when you're not working? What fills your cup when you're not working, Jane?
What fills my cup? I actually just really value my friends and spending time, going for dinner, having coffee, family as well, obviously. But my time with my girlfriends is really important to me.
Yeah, that's cool. What about you, Kylie? What fills your cup up?
Yeah, mine's probably a bit more of an introverted cup filling process. So one thing for me is reading, and I read widely and all sorts of books, mostly currently non-fiction. So I read a lot of stuff around design and self-development and things like that. And walking fills my cup.
Does it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I start the day walking. It's not been filling my cup quite as much because we've got a dog that we've adopted quite a few months ago, but he's still like really stressful on the walks. And it's just like, I was thinking this morning about that whole cortisol level thing, that it's high at the moment, and it's kind of just on that hyper alert when I go for a walk. So I'm looking forward to bringing back more peaceful, just a more peaceful cadence in life.
Yeah. I don't take my dog on my walk because I need to just walk.
Yes,
but it's a walk later. But
I
don't
think that's a good strategy.
And I don't take dogs.
That's a good strategy. That's a very, you can't see it at the moment. He's asleep and very, very beautiful here, but it's just that, I don't relax the same as I used to. Oh, gosh, we could talk forever and ever and ever. I love it. So remind us again, your website is
essenceofhome.com.au.
Yeah. And if people want to reach out, they'll be able to contact you through there. All the details are in the show notes as well. Thank you. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Catherine.
Lovely.
Thank you.